turn your microphone on. First mistake. It's going to be like that. Thanks to everyone for attending the meeting of the Planning Committee on the 10th of September 2024. I'm Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the Committee. Councillor Hilton is Vice Chair. Please note the meeting's being streamed live on YouTube. If you're in attendance as a member of the public who's registered to speak, please note you'll have a time limit of up to 3 minutes. Legal officer will operate a stopwatch and confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish speaking or in the middle of making a point wind up, otherwise your microphone will be muted. To assist in following the evening's proceedings, a pack's been prepared and is available online containing each item's report, plans and presentation slides. After officers have presented the report and any speakers have made the representations, I'll invite members to make their comments. When you want to speak, please raise your hand, and when invited to speak, remember to use your microphone, just like I didn't, and reference the paragraph number to allow everyone to follow. Please keep in mind that some people require closed captions and or lip reading to follow the proceedings. So try to speak slowly and clearly and keep your hands away from your mouth, please. Please can everyone ensure that their phones are turned to silence. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the same way that you came in. And I'd first of all like to welcome back Liz Walsh, our new legal service team leader. I've had one set of apologies from Councillor Whittaker. With that, item 1, minutes of the meeting Tuesday the 9th of July, pages 3 in your pack. Somebody move those minutes, please. Thank you. And I take that's a second as well. Thank you. All those in favour of that, please show. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of any interests. Members are reminded of responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained on the agenda. If you have such an interest, you must withdraw from the meeting. Normally, you should leave the room before the business starts to be discussed, but you do, however, have the same right to speak as a member of the public and may remain in the room to enable you to exercise that right and then leave immediately. In either case, you must not seek to improperly influence a decision on the matter. So no declarations. If not, we'll move straight on to item 3, planning applications to be determined. For the benefit of the public here tonight, the speaking arrangements for planning applications as follows. The officers will summarise the report and registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order. Objector, supporter, parish or town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes and ward councillors may speak for up to 5 minutes. In the event that all speakers are against an application, as chair, I may grant the applicant or representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak to remain quiet throughout the proceedings. And with that, we'll move on to item 3A, the Magistrates Court, St Thomas's Road, Chorley, pages 5 to 56, with an update on your addendum. Ian Crossland's going to present this item. The recommendation is planning permission is granted subject to conditions, and I have 2 registered speakers, an objector, Susan Ackroyd, and the agent, Dan Hughes. Ian, could you present the report, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of a building comprising 3 commercial units at ground floor with 52 apartments above, following the demolition of the existing Magistrates Court building. The building would consist of 12 floors, including the basement, and would be approximately 42 metres in height at its highest point. The application site comprises the Chorley Magistrates Court building, which is located in the centre of Chorley within the town centre boundary. It's considered that the provision of residential development with supporting commercial space on this site would support the vitality and viability of the town centre. It would be located in a highly sustainable location, reflecting the focus for growth and investment as set out in the Central Lancashire Core Strategy, and would provide regenerative benefits to this vacant site. The principle of development is therefore considered to be in general accordance with the development plan when taken as a whole and with the National Planning Policy Framework. The proposed building is of a contemporary design style that will contrast with the appearance of the buildings either side of the site, which are larger scale buildings and that vary quite distinctively in their appearance. The design approach using a frame and inset elevations would break up the mass of the building and create texture, whilst the proposed materials would reflect existing material finishes within the locality. The proposal would provide an active frontage and natural surveillance to St Thomas's Square, Mealhouse Lane and Farrington Street, and has the potential to generate greater patronage and active use of St Thomas's Square. The scale of the building would be greater in height than those around it. However, the visual impact would not be overly obtrusive given the limited viewpoints that would be affected and the context provided by the existing police station and town hall buildings that are in close proximity. Given the quality of the proposed design and its position within the town centre, adjacent to buildings of scale, the development would result in a positive contemporary addition to the townscape that would not be harmful to the character of the area, nor would it be harmful to the significance of nearby heritage assets. The building would be visible from nearby residential dwellings. However, the degree of separation and relative positioning is such that there would be no unacceptable neighbour amenity impacts as a result of the development. 2 disabled parking spaces and a drop-off bay will be provided as part of the development, in addition to secure covered cycle parking. Although this is less than the required parking standard, it is accepted that the site is in a highly sustainable location that is well served by public transport and where residents would not be dependent upon car-borne transport. Lancashire County Council Highways have assessed the scheme and do not consider it essential that off-street parking is provided. As such, they raise no objection to the application. Critical viability issues and affecting the deliverability of the development have been identified. A viability assessment has been submitted by the applicant demonstrating that no contributions to planning obligations are possible, as the viability of the scheme is marginal. This has been considered by the council's own viability consultant and accepted. Therefore, no contributions are sought from this development. Other matters of detail are considered to be acceptable and are covered in detail within the committee report. Overall, the proposed development would generate a number of benefits, including a contribution to the borough's housing supply, regeneration of a vacant town centre site, and a boost to the vitality and viability of Chorley Town Centre, in addition to the economic benefit of supporting construction jobs during the development. The design is considered to be positive, although the townscape would be altered, it's not considered to be unacceptably harmful. The proposal is considered to be in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Susan, would you like to make your representation then?
Thank you. 4 main objections. Scale. Contemporary architecture can be a complementary addition to an area, but why does it need to be 12 stories high? It's referred to as a landmark building. It certainly will be, but of what kind? Will it be a positive, beautiful, celebrated landmark? It's a block of flats. It will be higher than police station and visible on the skyline from all sides of the town centre, so it will be hard to ignore. Other people consulted have expressed concerns over the scale, though these aren't deal-breaking in their opinion. So this isn't just a personal beef. I'm not opposed to housing provision in the town centre and on this site, but consideration of suitability of scale for location, I feel, has been misjudged. The lack of affordable housing provision is disappointing and is argued on the basis that it is a disincentive to investment and compromises viability. Surely this will always be the argument for those in need of profit. The response that it is therefore considered acceptable without such contributions is, I think, unacceptable and sets a poor precedent. Parking. In a previous committee considering parking provision for apartments next to Sumner House, which was 17 parking places for 24 apartments, there was discomfort from some committee members about contravening policy on parking provision. This is a 52 apartment block and there is no parking provision bar 2 disabled parking bays. With developments at Sumner House, Applejacks, Queen's Road and now this, I think it is surprising that there isn't more concern over the strain on parking, which will be inevitable. Parking is pretty heavily subscribed for residents, let alone visitors in this area, and I simply can't believe acceptable that no additional parking provision is being considered as an obstacle. Impact on neighbourhood amenity. I am fortunate/unfortunate to be one of the dwelling houses on Queen's Road that is considered to have a major/moderate impact on neighbourhood amenity. And this appears to be proposed to be mitigated by the appearance of the building is not going to be detrimental, and that impact will be minimal in terms of sightlines, viewings, shadowing into the yards. I can express my concern on all three counts that those impacts will be significant, not unacceptably detrimental, in the words of the report. So sightlines will be directly impacted. There won't be blue sky, there'll be a block of flats.
Thank you. Have I got Dan now, please?
Chair, members of the Planning Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am the agent for this application and want to take this opportunity to highlight some points in support of the proposal. Firstly, the applicant has always sought to respond positively to all requests from the officers and consultees. The applicant has worked proactively with the council during pre-application discussions and throughout the application process, a timeline of approximately 3 years. This has resulted in changes to the scheme, leading to numerous benefits and no objections from statutory consultees. In this respect, we're pleased to be at Planning Committee today with a recommendation for approval. In particular, the site is well located, would make effective use of vacant land in an urban area of the district, can be developed without unacceptable harm on neighbouring land uses, has ability to deliver good and safe access, contributes to economic benefits through construction and the operational phase of development, contributes to regeneration in the town centre, provides a high-quality designed landmark building, and will deliver much-needed market housing in the district at a time where a 5-year housing supply cannot be demonstrated. While some comments raised by Growth Lancashire over the scale of the proposal, the benefits of the proposal significantly outweigh the harm that can be attributed to any heritage impacts. The proposal would be perceived to be close by and within the same view as the clock tower of the town hall. As detailed in the officer's report, this is not an unusual relationship in urban centres such as this one. The scheme, as presented, is delicately poised from a viability perspective. Time and attention has been taken in designing a scheme that is both well designed, but one in which both the market will want to pursue and is viable from development terms. This has included trying to reuse the existing building. Whilst comments have been received by Growth Lancashire over the scale, and the case officer for the proposal considers the planning balance in favour of the proposal, recommending it for approval, it is pertinent to note that reducing the scale has been considered to try and address the heritage comments. But simply, this is not viable and will result in no proposal coming forward at the site at all, leaving the site vacant. The scheme as presented today is the only real option for the site. As I understand it, a developer is lined up to take on the scheme should members concur with the recommendation. In this respect, it's likely the proposal at hand is also deliverable and one which in the short term would deliver real tangible benefits for the town centre. Finally, it's considered the proposal represents sustainable development in accordance with the relevant policies of the NPPF and can be found in accordance with the Council's development plan. I'm pleased to note the recommendation for approval and I would therefore urge members to accept the recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on anything? No. Okay, over to you, members. Is there anybody out there? Yes, Councillor Wilkie. Try that one.
Yep.
That'll be settled for you.
I've got several questions, if that's allowed. Okay, so in the policy of the core policy 7 of the strategy, we normally request the low-cost housing element, and that in the actual proposal has been discounted due to the profitability of the overall development. So just asking on the back of that, will these properties, if that's allowed, be for sale or for rent?
Through you, Chair. It's an entirely market housing scheme. So, yeah, policy 7 of the core strategy does require housing developments to provide a proportion of affordable housing. That is subject to considerations such as financial viability. If a development would be unviable to deliver with affordable housing, then that would be a good reason to waive the necessity for affordable housing. So in order to demonstrate that, you would have to submit a viability report, which is what's been provided in this instance by a viability expert. That's been checked by the council's own consultant who's been through it in detail to check whether it all stacks up, and they've verified that the scheme would be unviable if the council were to seek obligations such as affordable housing and contributions to public open space. The scheme simply wouldn't take place if you were to add those extra costs into it. So it has been demonstrated that it would be unviable to provide affordable housing and public open space, and that's been verified by the council's own consultant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Can I carry on? Additionally, this is going to be for habitation, so will there be additional telecommunications or aerials on the top, because that will extend the overall height of the development?
And through you, Chair, that's not what's been proposed, so that doesn't form part of the proposal.
Right. And we're talking about cladding. Obviously, with Grenfell, we're very concerned about cladding because of the chimney effect up the side of the building. So will this, I know it's metal, isn't it? But that is something that I'd be very worried about.
Through you, Chair. Yes, so the building does include some cladding to the upper floors. Obviously, any development that took place would have to comply with building regulations. It's not planning that covers the integrity of building materials. That's a building regulations function. Because the height of the building, and in consideration of the Grenfell disaster, a fire statement was required as part of the application. As part of the legislation, it does require a fire statement to be put forward, and that really, the point of that fire statement is that it requires a developer to look at fire safety considerations at an early stage of the design process, and that's been put forward with the scheme, and did result in some amendments to the scheme internally about access routes and communal areas and things like that being changed. That's been looked at by the Health and Safety Executive, who were the statutory consultee on fire statements, and they've accepted the fire statement that's been put forward and the scheme that's been put forward in terms of its planning status.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Additionally, there'll be lighting in the communal areas that will be possibly 24 hours. So have we thought about, there's no mention about the lighting, and there's lifts, so there'll be constant light emitting from the building, so therefore light pollution. Is that something that's been considered in the design? Because the stairwells are visible from all sides of the building, and obviously you've got nearby residents where this building will be overshadowing, so therefore with comings and goings, people living in that building, there will be constant light pollution from that emitting. Has that been considered?
It's not formed part of the planning consideration, to be honest. Inevitably the building would be lit internally. You wouldn't expect it to emit high levels of light from within the building to the extent that it would cause a nuisance to residential occupiers, and also given the degree of separation of, I think it's over 35 metres from the nearest residential property, you wouldn't be expecting the light to be emitted as such, but it would be visible at night.
Have they considered the, PIR lighting, so sorry, that's not consideration, no?
I think that's a detail that goes beyond the planning process, to be honest. Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
And lastly, has anyone considered, would the plan be viable if it was a reduced height?
Through you, Chair.
Thank you.
There have been discussions about the height of the building and how that might affect things if the height of the building was reduced by 2 stories, and the applicant has confirmed that the scheme wouldn't take place because it wouldn't be viable without that critical mass of development. So that wasn't a possibility to reduce the height of the building because it wouldn't be viable. So the scheme is as it is in front of you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Sherwood?
Thank you, Chair. We live on a small island, and at some point, towns have to consider building up rather than across. Otherwise, we're going to use up all our green space, our fields. And so I personally feel at some point we've really got to start looking at developments like this. I've read the report numerous times. Paragraph 6 lists the objections which might be relevant to the development. Paragraph 7 to 17 states a range of authorities that have no objections to the application. Paragraph 18 states the proposal meets the National Policy Framework for Sustainability. Additionally, paragraph 39 states Growth Lancashire says that there's no identifiable heritage assets that will be harmed by the development of this building. I'm personally interested and quite impressed with the proposed building, which will be inspired by brutalist modernism and Italianate architecture, all of which makes reference to the police station, architectural reference, historical reference to the police station, the magistrates' court and the town hall. And even if the police station was demolished, it would still represent an historical reference to when it existed. Going on from brutalism, modernism, we moved into postmodernism, where the use of eclectic mixes of styles is relevant to the movement. And this will be demonstrated by the architectural referencing. Additionally, the design would bring the concerns of 2024 into play, i.e. sustainability. There's a living roof, for example. There's mention of bird boxes, bat boxes, which would bring nature into the town. And I agree with what the officer said. It would help support the vitality of the town. So that is my opinion. I'm quite happy to listen to what everybody else has to say. Thank you.
Councillor Snow.
Well, this is one of the most interesting planning applications I've seen when I've been on this committee now, and 10, 12 years, for 12 years before. It certainly is a statement in the town that somebody's had sufficient confidence, or appears to have, to build such a large development in the centre of our town, and so high. Nobody would bat an eyelid at something like that in the edge of Manchester or Salford city centres, but this is Chorley. This is in that will be in the highest point of Chorley. It will be visible from nearly all of Chorley. Nevertheless, I think that there's plenty of merits in the application. I quite like the aesthetics of the building. I don't believe that statement that it reflects both the Italianate nature of the town hall and the brutalist police station. I don't really think you can do that. This building has to stand on its own merits, and anything equally brutal as the police station, I don't think would be particularly merit. Councillor Sherwood has pointed out some of the good environmental aspects of the building. I think it's important that we bring people to live in the centre of Chorley. This will be a quality offer. Hopefully it will have the effect of providing more affordable rented housing, because rented housing in Chorley is is poor and expensive. This might have a decent effect on the market. So with some slight reservations, I'm happy to move the application.
Thank you, Chair. My main concern here is the lack of parking. Surely we do have a problem with parking, and the officers said that parking, in their opinion, wouldn't be a problem. 50 odd apartments, even if only half of them have cars, that's approximately 25. In my opinion, it would be a very big problem within Chorley, within this area. We are a market town, one way or the other. We're a small town, a market town. We're not Manchester, not Liverpool. We like a small place. Whether this is a building for Chorley, that's a matter of opinion. I'm not going to say one or the other. But another concern, which I appreciate, it's not a planning matter at the moment, but you've got the police station next to it, which will be up for sale. That is a wider footprint than this one. So you can imagine in so many years' time when this is developed and the developer gets hold of the police station, you're going to have another massive another massive building the same height there. So it's not just one building you're going to get. And I'd appreciate it not planning out, because we're only presuming, but you can imagine another building there. And if there's no parking facilities for that, we're going to have a massive problem there again. So, yeah, my main concern is the parking. I hate the police station with a vengeance. I think it's an ugly building, and I've never liked it. Because of the size, actually, it's not in keeping with the area, and whether this building is going to be in keeping, I'm of an open mind at the moment. But as I said, main concern parking, and I don't think it's in keeping within Chorley. As someone said, I think the council, if it was a lower building, I might be happy. If it was the same size as the police station, I'm not sure I'd be happy. Sumner's House, they're approximately the same size. I'd be more than happy if it was that size, but yeah, just concerned about the parking, and in my opinion, not in keeping with the area. Thank you.
Just a couple of quick questions. Is there going to be any CIL from this?
Through you, Chair. Apartments are zero rated for community infrastructure levy, so it wouldn't attract any community infrastructure levy on this development at this moment in time. Thanks, Chair.
Then secondly, just wanted to know, so in paragraph 91, it mentions, given that the site is within a highly sustainable location, LCC Highways do not consider it essential that off-street parking is provided. Could you just go into a bit more detail about highly sustainable location? Just following from what Danny said, 52 apartments, if you estimate half of them to have cars, it's 26 cars. Quite a lot of people need a car these days. Even if you're just going to visit somebody in an apartment, where do you park your car? I know there's a car park, but you don't really want to be paying for parking, really. Could put you off.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair. So whether the location is sustainable or not depends on a number of factors. So things that highways would look at when they're considering the sustainability of the location, and that planning officers would look at as well, are the proximity to public transport modes. So, for instance, the walking distance to bus stops and the bus station is easily walkable. There's also good pedestrian access to a railway station. And then when you look at, if you take a buffer zone around the development of 1 kilometre, which is sort of a good guide of how far people are willing to walk, then you look at the amenities that are in that that buffer zone, and it includes an awful lot of amenities. So, for instance, shops, supermarkets, schools, churches, other places of worship. So there's an awful lot of amenities and access to public transport modes within walking distance of the development. And if you bring those things together, it would mean that you wouldn't necessarily need a car in order to live there, because you could access everything that you need without a car. So in a situation like that, the county council would come to the conclusion that it's a highly sustainable location. And on that basis, they would suggest that you wouldn't actually need a car to live in this property. And I guess that's similar to other city centres around the country and town centres, whereby parking isn't considered necessary if you can access everything you need to on foot or by bicycle. A cycle store has been included with the development. It's quite a sizable cycle store, so it would be able to accommodate cycles for all of the apartments. So that's a part of the consideration as well. But it is a highly sustainable site, but however, no parking's been provided because the residents, in theory, could live there without a car. So that's why they've arrived at that conclusion, Highways and in the committee report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. The design as it sits are rather like, but there's one or two points it has thrown up that have been covered. One of the objections that we had in was from Lancashire Police vis-a-vis telecoms. Yeah, the objection they put in was rather weak. They didn't make any mention about saturation or penetration or any dB loss or anything like that, other than the fact it might just affect the airwaves, which I thought was rather weak. So to that end, I would kind of be tempted to disregard that objection if they can't be bothered to do a halfway decent report on it. However, on the subject of telecoms, whilst I like the structure and the building's design, what I wouldn't want to see, and this would become prevalent with being the tallest point in Chorley, I wouldn't want to see it become a site for extra masts for telecoms, etc., etc. Can we put any conditions on that one there? That whilst I rather like the design of the building, it's modern and it seems to tick a lot of boxes, can we put any conditions on that? So start off at 10. Just take
Anybody
a 10.
else want to make any comment? Councillor Marlow.
Thank you, Chair. At the moment, I'm undecided. I have no objections to flats at all. In fact, I agree with Councillor Sherwood that there comes a point in this country where we have to think of going up, and of course they do in the cities, and that's the norm. And we have to. We are short of housing in Chorley, and flats might be the answer, although I still think, personally, that it's perhaps a little bit excessive, the size of it. It's a big jump from what's the norm in Chorley, and it will be a shock if we let it go, and we may approve it. The whole character of the townscape will change without a doubt. You said it would be visible by nearby dwellings, and as other councillors have said, it will be visible from pretty much anywhere within the town of Chorley, which may or may not be a good thing. The design, I do like it. I like the thought, and I hope all the greenery that's shown there and so forth remains, and it's well managed, and it keeps that. I'm a little bit worried if it will suddenly become some kind of collection for antisocial behaviour, because I'm not happy about the retail. And I just wondered if, when they were discussing dropping it by a couple of floors, you were losing flats, and I can see that maybe not making it viable, but would it have made a terrific difference if the retail had gone, and that would drop it just that little bit to make it, I think, totally acceptable. So that can't be discussed now, but that's the way it is. In terms of parking, I agree with what Ian has just said. We always make the same mistake. Everybody presumes wherever number of houses is, there's going to be 2 cars, 4 cars, and etc. It's just automatic, and it shouldn't be, because this is the idea of sustainability is, and I know particularly younger people do not automatically go for cars anymore. They go for sustainable developments where they travel by bus and train, and usually, of course, it's in the bigger cities, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be in the towns. My son has had a driving license from the minute he was 18, and he's never driven since, because everywhere he has lived, across the country, he goes by public transport. He goes across the country by public transport. It never enters his head to get a car, and he rents. So we have to get away from this automatic presumption that everybody has a car and is going to, because I think particularly younger people, when I say younger, 30s, that's not automatic anymore, I don't think. I'll leave it at that for the moment. As for just a little bit about the light, I don't think there'll be any more light than there was when the police station was fully working and every floor was ablaze with fluorescent lighting. So I don't think there'll be much change. In fact, I'm sure it'll be an improvement. So at the moment, my feeling is, yes, maybe we should take the plunge, but possibly just a little bit too high. But I'm still open to accepting the proposal, but I'm still deciding. So I'll wait for others perhaps to come in with their arguments.
Any more comments that are different, please?
Yeah, I'd share Councillor
Adele wants to come back on the early.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. With regard to telecommunications equipment, at this moment in time, the legislative framework provides extensive permitted development rights for telecommunications installations. However, as again, at this moment in time, where a building is within 20 metres of a highway or is over a certain height, those permitted development rights aren't conveyed to the installation on the roof. So we would be in control of future installations on top of the roof as they would require planning permission. But that's at this moment in time, and obviously the legislative regime can always change. Thank you, Chair.
Okay,
Can I just-
okay, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with what Councillor Morwood said about car parking. So if you look at Manchester, those massive buildings they've got there, there's not parking all over the place because of those. People choose to live in flats, and if we had them here, I think people would maybe move out from Manchester, come to live in somewhere like Chorley, and then commute from Chorley to Manchester or towards Preston. And that way, that would be an economic benefit by getting people to live in town centres. And I do think it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. So we don't want people building on green space. Chorley is a very rural space, and there's lots of pressures to try and fit housing in. And to me, I think we need to be trying to regenerate brownfield sites and to fit houses in and flats in. And I think flats are an important way of doing it. I think we'll have personally, I think also it says to the north of England that Chorley is a vibrant, modern and exciting town that's willing to do something new. And I do like the fact that the architecture has given that sort of juxtaposition between modern and old with the relevant to this wonderful building we're in, and also what some people might call a carbuncle, but it's a statement. So personally, I think it's an opportunity to bring a lot of development to Chorley that says we are a modern, vibrant town and we're on the up. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hilton. You're already done. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to remind members that the statutory consultee of the Highways Authority have said that there is no issue with parking, therefore that is not a valid argument to refuse this application. In terms of this might not be the norm for Chorley, it might not be the norm at the moment, but it might be the new norm moving forward. I think the town needs to evolve, and this may be the first step forward to be able to do that. We are operating in a tilted balance situation, and we need to provide housing for Chorley. We cannot demonstrate a 5-year land supply, so this is a great way of getting 50-something new dwellings into the town. It is a sustainable location, and I agree with everything that Councillor Green and Councillor Sherwood have said. So I have no issue with this application, and I'd like to second the proposal by Councillor Snow to accept officer recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Adele, clarification. My question was, can we apply conditions? I'm aware of what you said, and I get that. Can we apply conditions, even if in some time in the future they were to change?
Through you, Chair, given that planning permission is required for that type of future development, that condition would not be necessary, so it wouldn't meet the tests.
Come back
Okay,
to us.
thank you.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay. If everybody has commented that wants to, then I'll move to the vote, please. That's them. Ah, there we go. Why have we got Councillor Carsby? Oh, yeah, no. See, we've not got the... Oh, yeah. That's not a right list that we've got. So, can we do it with a show of hands in the old-fashioned way, please? All those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. Clearly. Okay. Right. All those against? Any abstentions? Okay. Can you tell us?
Members have voted and they have agreed with the officer's recommendation to grant planning permission subject to conditions as set out in the report.
Thank you. If anybody's come just for that item, you feel free to go. It will not make you stay. One of these days, this voting system's going to work. Okay, can we? Aye. Moving on. Item, councillors. Item 3B. I've not turned over. Rotherham Top Farmhouse, Whitley Woods, pages 57 to 94, with an update on your addendum, including an amended condition. Adele's going to present this item. Recommendation is planning permission granted subject to conditions and all that's there. I've one registered speaker, the objector, Jennifer Park. Adele, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is located within the settlement area of Whitley Woods on the northern side of Lee Road, positioned around Rotherham Top Farmhouse, which is a Grade 2 listed building in residential use. The immediate locality is predominantly residential in character. The site is occupied by buildings including one immediately to the west of the listed building, which is a large pitched roof timber building with an adjoining flat roof carport. And in the northwest corner of the site there is a large brick built building. The site is in mixed use with a planning history demonstrating that it has been used for a variety of activities, including industrial processing as a meat cutting factory and for agricultural purposes as a chicken hatchery. Parts of the site are also used as domestic garden in conjunction with the Rotherham Top Farmhouse itself. 11 representations have been received from the occupiers of neighbouring property, and they're detailed in the main report and relate to matters of increased traffic and highway safety, noise and amenity, ecological damage and impacts on the listed building itself. There are no outstanding objections to the scheme from any of the statutory consultees. It's considered that the proposal would not adversely affect neighbouring residential amenity and would provide acceptable living conditions for any future occupiers of the proposed development. The proposed development is considered to be well designed and would not be harmful to the character and appearance of the wider area. Access to the proposed dwellings, apart from Plot 8, would be via an existing access point from the existing estate road. Lee Road and LCC Highways have stated that they have no objections in respect of highway safety matters, including access. There is also an existing vehicular access from Preston Road to Rotherham Top Farmhouse, which runs between the petrol station and number 67 Preston Road, and representations have been received raising concerns that this would enable the development to be used as a means of gaining access to Preston Road as effectively what would be a rat run. However, the access leads directly to Rotherham Top Farmhouse only, which is not part of the application site, and to gain entry to the access, vehicles would have to pass through private amenity space of this property. It's accepted that currently there are no boundary treatments between the farmhouse and the application site to serve as a deterrent to this. However, the provision of appropriate boundary treatment would be secured by means of an imposition of a condition. It's therefore recommended that the application is approved subject to conditions and a legal agreement as detailed in the committee report and the addendum, where you'll note that there's a slight change to condition number 5. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Jennifer, do you want to speak?
Okay, so the Chorley local plan says development within private residential gardens on sites not allocated for housing will only be permitted for C, infill development on gardens classified as filling a, quote, small gap in otherwise built up street frontage filled by 1 or possibly 2 houses. You cannot build 5 or 6 houses in a, quote, small gap, and 5 or 6 is clearly a lot more than possibly 2. Point 31 says there's 2 bedroom windows overlooking on plot 1. There aren't no unacceptable adverse effect on the result of privacy loss for Bluebell number 6. However, it does overlook their side garden and front garden, overlooks their conservatory and their back garden at an angle. It describes an access point, it's not a real road, and under the Manual for Streets document, it says that the first 6 metres from the highway of a private driveway should be minimum of 5 metres wide for tracking. Is this the case? Because I can't see it on the plans, and at the moment it says 4.5 metres wide. Point 32, it notes that there's only 6.7 metres between a window on plot 2 and Bluebell Close number 5, and it says they should be, and that's your words, a minimum of 10 metres. Glazed or not, it's still a window, it doesn't meet conditions. Point 64 to 66, surface water, it says it isn't an issue, it is an issue. All of my neighbours will tell you it is an issue, and there's no, if you take the floor away and put more hard surfacing in, it will increase this and it will damage our gardens further. Point 59, the bats, a report from nearly a year ago in late September stated that it was a suboptimal time for surveying a building considered low potential. I see numerous bats for a decade. I've seen them every summer. This summer was the same. Point 42, it says that there's no collisions in the last 5 years. Great, but it does not record near misses nor go unreported to police. There's no give way signs or markings at the bottom of Lee Road. It is dangerous. Children use Lee Road bus stop to return from school, walk down there. How are you going to make sure that large construction vehicles are not causing an extra significant risk to children? The Highways Agency state development should not pose a risk. Point 42, there are no boundary treatments between the farmhouse. As you said, I want to make sure that that condition is absolutely put in place. We're not having a rat run. Point 70, total of £804 for areas of provision for young people. Doesn't include the one right at the end of Lee Road. It's going to 3 other departments that aren't even near us. And how far does 804 go today for equipment or labour? Point 60, invasive and illegal contested plants, which I need to make sure that that's not going to be spread because I don't want them all in my garden any more than they already are. Additional points, bins. It says that private driveways not accessible for refuse. There's no mention of where a bin collection point is going to be, and I don't really want, 13 bins on certain days when there's 3 collected on one day, sat outside my back window or next to my neighbour's house. Points that are never mentioned or bothered about in reports is the huge property value reduction and financial loss for surrounding existing properties and the families who work goddamn hard to own them. The unquantifiable negative emotional and well-being impact on us and the huge inconvenience of this process, even having to be here to say this for current residents without compensation when we bought these houses specifically because they were not overlooked on that site. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on anything, Adele?
Thank you.
Over to you, members.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed on the previous planning applications, 24/00099 TPO, there's been previous works to, I think, crown and to tree protections on the site, and yet the actual planning talks about removing 11 trees, which are of insignificant or not exceptional arboricultural. Thanks, the one. Thank you. Significance. Thank you. So 11 trees, mature trees, do soak up a lot of, you know, they are good for the environment. We have green initiatives in the council. So what constitutes that these trees are of no significance? Thank you.
Adele, do you want to come back?
Yeah, the trees have been inspected by the council's tree officer. So in many cases, it may be that they're not of particularly good form. It may be that they have some element of disease, and a report sits behind all of this and is available for inspection as part of the submission of documents that form the planning application. So that's effectively the conclusion of the report. So that is available if you want to go away and have a look at that. You can see what the criteria was and what category of trees they are. But essentially, it may be that as a group, trees form an amenity as a group and are valuable in that sense, but individually they're not of particularly good form. They're not a particularly good example of a specific tree. The application you referred to when you spoke, it wasn't a planning application, it was simply an application to do works to protect your trees. I just wanted to clarify that. The TPO reference means that it was an application for tree works, not for development.
Sorry, does that apply to these particular trees then in previous applications, or is this completely different trees?
The trees aren't the ones that are covered by the TPO. There's other trees within the site.
Okay, I've got Councillor Southern.
Thank you, Chair. It is a bit of an anomaly, this existing site, and as much of what's said on there. So development of it, I have no issue with as such. Growth Lancs, I noted, asked to reduce the scale of this, which these plans obviously represent that, and I'm okay with that. In terms of density, I mean, the local density on that one is 13 houses per hectare, so this sits well below that level in terms of scaling on that one there. Do we have a condition in for replanting of trees on that one there? Sorry, officers. Do we have a condition attached to that for replanting of trees? Am I right in thinking that? I think I read somewhere we did.
Just a minute, she's going to.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, if you check your report, Councillor, conditions 14 and 15 relate to tree issues. 14 requires the trees to be protected, and then condition 15 requires the full details of 11 replacement trees before any development commences.
That's in our conditions, that's fine. And also on the, I didn't quite say anything on the drainage side of that one. Obviously drainage is my pet hobby horse. Is there a drainage plan attached to this application?
I wouldn't anticipate that there would be with a scheme of this size, given where it is, and that would be picked up by building control.
I saw you obviously no objections to tapping in, but it's the same scenario. The point was quite rightly made by the objector here that depending on what sort of surface and what materials they use there, i.e. flagging, hard surface, etc., where is that water going to go? Sorry, yeah. I noticed there was no objections from UU for obviously coupling into the main sewers on that one there, but the point that was raised by the objector, which is a valid one, and quite salient in this development, is the fact that what materials are being used for the hard surfaces, i.e. have we got porous materials where we can actually do some attenuation, drain this water away? There is an issue of flooding up there, and that would be a concern of mine.
Through you, Chair, yeah, there is reference in the report to a requirement for a drainage scheme to be submitted, but it doesn't look like it's been attached as part of the conditions. So if members are minded to approve it, I would recommend an additional condition for a drainage scheme to be submitted.
That's where I'm going with that one.
Yeah.
Apart from that, you know, in terms of the actual scale of it and what it's presented, I'm okay with that as a recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Marwood, did you indicate you wanted? Or was it, no, or was it Councillor Green?
So, thanks, Chair. So, basically echoing what Councillor Southern said. So, there will be an assessment done to demonstrate that drainage will not cause a detrimental impact on other residents.
Yeah, through you, Chair. In the report, it does say that we will recommend a condition for a surface water drainage scheme to be submitted.
Yeah.
So that's a standard condition that is attached, and we get the details of that to understand what the scheme would look like, and on discharge of that application we would do the necessary consultations.
So if for example it was approved today, that assessment came through, can that be a stopper for the scheme going forward? Is that how it works?
Through you, Chair, there is generally a technical solution to the drainage issue.
Yeah.
So the condition would require how that would work, whether there would need to be any attenuation. It's not what I would regard as a greenfield site, so we're not looking at greenfield runoff rates in excess of normal runoff rates, but we would normally expect it to be no greater than the current runoff rates. So that would be all captured by the drainage scheme that would be submitted as part of the requirements of the condition.
Yeah, because that was one of my major concerns for it, knowing the area. So, yeah.
Michael, I'm not familiar with this area, and even looking at the diagrams and the pictures and so forth, and given what the objector has said, I'd like to go and look at it and see how close neighbours are, and look at we might be lucky, it might be raining, so look at how the water lies and so on, and the access and so forth. As I say, personally, I think I would like to go and, it's very unusual for me, I appreciate, but I'd like a site visit. I'd like to propose a site visit, please.
Councillor Singh and then Councillor Beach.
I'm not sure if we need it, but can I second the site visit? And secondly, just wanted to know, are any of these properties are they close by to an existing property at the minute, is it?
10 metres.
Could you just clarify that, somebody?
In terms of distances?
Do they have to be like a certain distance apart? I don't know.
Yeah, our normal standards do set out distances between habitable facing rooms and habitable facing rooms, and windows and non-habitable room windows, and the length of gardens and gables. So that's been assessed as part of the application, which is detailed in the assessment as part of the report. So from habitable room to habitable room window, you would normally expect in the region of about 21 metres. From habitable room window to gable end, you would normally expect in the region of about 12 metres. In terms of length of garden, you would normally expect in the region of 10 metres. But that's very much a standardisation, and it depends on levels, it depends on orientation, it depends on what the window is used for, whether it's in, like I say, a bathroom, a landing, kitchen, living room. So, you know, living rooms and bedrooms, habitable rooms, landing windows and hallway windows and bathroom windows, non-habitable spaces and circulation spaces. So and it also depends on the orientation. So if the orientation is such that some property is to the north of an existing property, the likely impact on loss of light is is much less than if it was to the south of that property because of the direction of the sun. So you may be able to justify a relaxation of those standards depending on the orientation and whether or not there's an increased in heights. Where there's an increase in heights, I would expect the interface distances to increase in the region of about 1 metre for every half metre. So that's the technical background to how we would assess the relationships.
Just to make it easier for me, has the assessment raised any issues?
It has, and that's why the recommendation and the conclusion is that the application is approved.
Councillor Beach.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Singh already beat me to it. I was going to second Councillor Morwood's proposal.
Thank you, Chair. So just one other point. On point 69, it says, with regards to the provisions for children and young people, there is currently a surplus of provision in Buckshaw and Whittle in relation to this standard, and contributions towards the new provision in the ward is therefore not required for this development. The only thing I would just knowing, because this is within my ward, I think there's lots of provisions for younger people, but not for sort of from your young teens through to there. So in terms of that statement, I do have a little bit of a objection to that statement being made. So and certainly around the area where this is, I know there's stuff on Buckshaw, but not necessarily around our. Yeah, so but it's just this in there. So in terms of the. Yeah, so okay.
Okay. So I've had a proposer and a seconder for a site visit, and nothing else. So, no, sorry. You really can't comment. I did say at the beginning that you're not allowed to speak once you've made your point. Okay, right. All those in favour of a site visit, please show. Yeah, I did. Those against? Any abstentions? Okay. So I think the outcome of that is we'll be going on a site visit, the date to be arranged. If anybody's come just for that item, please feel free to go if you wish. I'll not make you stay. I'm getting fed up of people. From the MP, Sir Lindsay Orr, that I'll read out to you. Mr Bamford contacted him regarding the above planning application. I understand the cottage tea room is a successful business but currently limited to the number of customers they can cater for. The use of the rear yard would increase capacity and help the business meet the demand. I have been informed that there have been no objections and therefore would ask that the committee look favourably upon this application. So that's with that. Adele's going to present this item and it's recommended the application is refused as outlined in the report, and I have one registered speaker, the applicant Robin Bamford.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is located within the Brinscoll Local Centre as defined by the Chorley Local Plan, within the settlement area itself, and is on the southern side of School Lane. The existing building is a single-storey building located at the eastern end of a row of terraced dwelling houses and is adjacent to two modern detached dwellings. It is currently in use as a cafe, and there are neighbouring residential properties on either side at 27 School Lane to the west and 25B School Lane to the east. The application seeks planning permission to vary the wordings of condition 3, which relates to the rear door, and to remove condition 5, which relates to the use of the rear yard area and which were attached to an earlier planning permission. Condition number 3 requires the rear door of the premises to be kept closed at all times other than for access and egress of persons, and condition 5 relates to the rear yard being used by customers, prevents it from being used by customers in conjunction with the cafe use itself, i.e. preventing outside seating area. 26 representations have been received supporting the proposal, including from the neighbouring occupier at number 27, stating that the tea room is an important community resource and the use of the rear yard for a few extra tables would help the business to accommodate additional customers and would not impact on the surrounding properties. I'm mindful that the MP has written to Chair, but in that letter sets out that they were under the impression there are no objections, but there have been 3 representations received objecting to the development on grounds of noise and disturbance and parking. The pertinent conditions were imposed in order to safeguard the amenity of local residents. An appeal was submitted against the imposition of the conditions and the appeal was subsequently dismissed, and this is material in the consideration of this application. The planning inspector agreed with the council that the conditions were reasonable and necessary in order to protect the living conditions of the neighbours. No new mitigatory measures have been proposed under the current application that would ameliorate the previously identified harm to neighbouring amenity as a result of noise and disturbance. The use of the rear yard as a customer seating area could potentially attract some new customers and also generate an additional demand for parking, although it's envisaged that the proposal would not result in any significant change to the parking patterns in the immediate locality. It is, however, recommended that the application is refused for the reasons detailed in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Robin, would you like? Yeah. You might be better to sit down because you're nearer to the microphone.
Okay. My name is Robin Bamford. I'm the applicant and the landlord of the Cottage Tea Room, Brinscall. This application is simply for outdoor seating, 3 picnic benches which may be used in fair weather within the approved opening hours of 10 AM to 4 PM. Absolutely nothing else. In 2009, we were refused planning for outdoor seating, and this was largely due to the objections from our neighbours at both sides, with the primary objector at number 27, who was at the time represented personally by Councillor Margaret France. 15 years on, circumstances have changed completely, hence our reapplication. The primary objector at number 27 has moved from the village, and our new neighbours not only do not object to our application, they have written a personal letter of support. The other new neighbour at 25B has not objected. We have had overwhelming support from the public, including a personal letter of support from Sir Lindsay Hoyle, who is a regular visitor to the tea room and someone who crucially knows the history of the previous applications. In light of the changes, I've met personally with Councillor France, and she's now agreed to remove all previous objections. There are direct precedences. Our nearest like-for-like tea room is the village tea room at Wealton, approximately 1.5 miles away. Here at Brinscall, there is one window which overlooks our seating area at the house of our supporting neighbours at 27. At Wealton, the seating area is overlooked on 3 sides by at least 16 windows. I've provided photographs. The next like-for-like tea room is a cafe at Abbeyville, it's called Holdings. It opened 18 months ago and is approximately a mile away from our tea room. They have been granted outdoor seating tables, as the photographs provided, on the pavement, with one of the tables less than 1 metre from the house at number 24. 1 metre. The cafe is licensed, Wealton Cafe is licensed, Brinscall is not. We simply ask that we're treated in exactly the same manner as the other neighbouring tea rooms. This is a much-loved local cafe, established for over 16 years, providing a welcome service and much-needed employment to the community. Should we be granted planning, the outdoor area would only be used on those very rare occasions we get sunshine. this is Brinscroll. To say nothing has changed is completely unreasonable. Over the last 16 years, things have definitely changed for this application. I respectfully ask the committee to take all these new factors into account and allow this much-loved little tea room to have limited outdoor seating in exactly the same way as the other cafes and tea rooms in the area have. No more, no less. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Perfect timing. And I couldn't agree with you more about the weather. I've got Councillor Hilton, Councillor Southern, Councillor Beach.
Thank you, Chair. I think the complication with this application is the fact that a planning inspector has already dismissed a previous appeal, and we have to put some weight towards that. However, planning inspectors don't get it right every time. I think previous objections are from the neighbours who have moved now, and from what the applicants just said, that the current neighbours don't have any objections to it. There have been some objections, but not many, and certainly in terms of the letters of support. So I think things have changed here, and I think it's challenging because of the inspector decision. So I'm going to propose an amendment, if that's okay. So I think what we need to do is, I'm proposing we put a temporary permission on for a period of 12 months. At that point, we can assess whether there are any impact to the immunity of local residents. And if there's not, then are we able to then welcome another application at that point if that amendment has been approved? I'll just check with Adele before I finally make that proposal.
Right, Adele, you want to come in there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think there's a couple of things to pick up there. I think, Councillor Hilton, what you're suggesting is that you would be looking to move approval of the application contrary to officer recommendation on the basis that there's been a change in circumstances in terms of the level of objection. And the permission would be for a temporary period with the other conditions carried through. I would therefore suggest that any conditions are delegated to Chair and Vice Chair if that's what you wanted to move. If it was a temporary 12-month approval and the proprietor wanted to then continue on a permanent basis, they would need to then reapply and do another further Section 73 application, at which point it would be, in about 10 months, 11 months in order to get any decision before the expiry of it. And any issues that may or may not have arisen could be explored. But yeah, it's open to you to move an alternative recommendation, setting out your reasons for doing so, and requiring the imposition of various conditions, including a temporary condition, the exact wording of which can be delegated to Chair and Vice Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to propose that. I think there has been a significant change, and this way we'll be able to determine whether there is actually a significant impact on the immunity of local residents, because they would have the opportunity to raise complaints about noise, etc., via the Council's Environmental Health Department. So we would at least have that on record. So I would like to move that, as Adele has suggested, for those reasons as an amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Southern, and then
Thank you, Chair. Well, Councillor Hilton, you've read my mind. What I was going to ask was, is there a room to basically derogate from B&E 1? And here we have the answer. I'd like to commend Robin on his dogged determination. I've read the history on this place, and I have actually called him on more than one occasion for a cup of tea, but I would like to thank you for your dogged determination. But I think what we've reached is a very good compromise. So on the basis of that, I'd like to second Councillor Hilton's proposal that we derogate from this section and extend a short period of 12 months where it can be assessed. I think that's a very reasonable solution to this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 points of clarity, if I can ask that. One is of the gentleman. You say that it's 10 till 4. Is it 7 days a week?
Councillor Beach,
sorry, my apologies.
Because you can't speak.
Sorry. I'll ask the officers then. Is it 10 till 4, 7 days a week?
It's open 7 days a week, 10 till 4 and every day apart from Saturday, but Saturday is 10 while 6 in the evening. Isn't it? That's the approved opening hours.
And just on the proposal that Councillor Hilton's put, we're amending it to for 12 months, but the applicant would reapply within that 12 months. Does it then come back to full committee for approval or refusal at that stage?
Through you, Chair, the original Section 73 that is extant now would be essentially varied for a 12-month period. If an application comes forward, a further application comes forward, that would be dealt with at that point in time. If no application came forward, then the extant planning permission would continue without the varied details of the door and the outside seating area. I'm just mindful that the applicant indicated some concerns about the opening hours, so if you don't mind, Chair, can we just have a short adjournment while I just check those hours?
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Okay, Adele.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think the point is the cafe is able to open for 7 days a week. It has the appropriate consent to do so, but it only opens for a limited amount of time. So on the basis of what the applicant has advised, as officers, we would draft appropriately worded conditions in consultation with Chair and Vice Chair to reflect their existing opening hours on that basis.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just ask, Chair, please, what the difference would be of this outside space as versus a pub, which would be open for longer hours? Because this is a cafe, isn't it, with no licence? Thank you.
I can only really direct you to the previous history and maybe the inspector's report on the previous reports. Pubs that are long established as a planning unit will generally be able to operate in a beer garden without consent because it forms part of their planning unit. When the original consent was granted for this property, it was changing its use to become a cafe and conditions were imposed, and there were strong representations received from the neighbouring occupiers, and at the time Environmental Health raised concerns. So I would just simply direct you to review the inspector's report. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I'd just say, I think the proposal's very sensible and very pragmatic, and I also think it has the benefit of being, from an economic point of view, for the local area, because I know, having gone to the cafe, it is often very, very full, and I'm not able to get in, so having extra space generates more economic revenue for the area as well, so I think that's a positive benefit from what the proposal is, so I think it's a very sensible proposal.
Yes, I'm going to drag it out a little bit longer. I'm just confirming it doesn't have a drinks license, so it's a cafe. So it's open till 4 o'clock all days. I'm happy with this, as you say, change. The reason I think it really has to be clear is it's all very well neighbours saying we don't object, but they've never actually had 12 months of possible noise and parking issues and so on. So I'm happy to accept that 12 months is a good compromise, and we'll see what comes from the end of that. Thank you.
Apologies, Chair, through you. I just want to make a quick correction just for the sake of completeness and for the avoidance of doubt in the future. It's not material to your consideration at all. It's just that the address on the presentation there's an error there. So just we will correct that in the minutes, that the presentation should relate to the property on School Lane. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll move to the vote. Could all those in favour of the amended plan, the condition that we've just said, please show. Have we any against? Any abstentions? No, so that's okay. No worries, and you're free to go now, unlike us. Bye. Item 3D is over the page. Is Charlie FC Victory Park, pages 111 to 132, with an update on your addendum, including some amended conditions. Ian's going to present this item. Recommendation that planning permission is granted subject to conditions, and we've no registered speakers. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission retrospectively for the use of land as a fan zone comprising a bar, kiosk, timber fencing and tables with seating. The site's located within Victory Park Football Ground, which is the home to Chorley Football Club and is within the settlement area of Chorley. The proposed development would support the functions of the football club in catering for supporters attending matches without affecting the playing pitch, and would therefore comply with policies HW2 and HW6 of the Chorley Local Plan and is acceptable in principle. The fan zone is contained within the football stadium and is of a functional design suitable to its immediate surroundings. It's not therefore considered to be harmful to the character of the area in any way. The fan zone is located nearest to residential dwellings on Ashby Street. It's screened from these properties by the fence and kiosk that have been erected to contain the fan zone. Although these features are visible from the properties on Ashby Street, it's not considered that they are unacceptably harmful to the outlook from these properties in consideration of their modest scale. Although the intensity of activity would increase on this part of the ground due to the presence of the fan zone, where previously it was parking and storage, it's recognised that noise disturbance already occurs on match days, and it is therefore considered that the development would not lead to an unacceptable degree of noise disturbance so long as its use is confined to match days only. Overall, the application is considered to be acceptable in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out on the addendum. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, members. Councillor Beach, Councillor Morwood.
I'd like to propose that we go with the officer recommendations. This is retrospective planning application, and therefore it's already sort of happening as we speak, so I don't see any objections. It only happens on match days and it's key, integral to the economy of Chorley, so I'm happy to propose officer recommendations, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no objections. Happy to second the proposal. As I always say, it's a pity it's retrospective, but that's fine.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, echo my colleagues' statements basically. It's part of Charlie FC. It's there already, and I think it's just basically a case of formalising it. It's on the record. Thank you. I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? There you are. That's passed. Right, moving on. Hey? Yeah, do you want? Yeah, do you want to go now? Yeah, you don't have to stay. Thank you. Item 4 is the appeals report, pages 133 to 136. Adele?
Thank you, Chair. This report is simply for noting and to report that the position with appeals that have been lodged and appeals that have been determined. There are no major appeals on the list. The only ones that I really wanted to bring your attention to is probably the Friths Court decision where the appeal was allowed. I think members will recall that the officer recommendation was that the application was approved and it was refused contrary to officer recommendation. That was allowed earlier in the summer. And the other one that I wanted to bring to your attention was just an apology really, because there was a delay in the decision actually getting to us, and it was only when we chased it up, it was a certificate of lawfulness that had come through earlier in the year. So that's why it seems a little bit long in the tooth. But there's no other comments that I want to make. I'm happy to take any questions if you've got any queries, but it's just for noting.
And I didn't have my microphone on, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm mindful you've not had long to digest the information with it being an urgent item, but essentially it follows on as part of the process of responding to the council being placed in special measures in respect of its quality of decision making in respect of major applications. It's essentially self-explanatory, and obviously the action plan was approved at council a couple of months ago. There's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and I'm pleased to report that a lot of the areas for improvement in terms of the status have either been actioned or they're in progress. So they now have a green rating. Again, in terms of the appeal performance, there's a significant improvement whereby we're dropping below the threshold. The action plan was submitted to government following the council's decision. We will now write to government setting out where we are with the progress of the action plan and setting out and providing details of our own monitoring. The formal decisions and the data is due to be published shortly. So hopefully the data that does come out will reflect what we think it should be. And we will just continue to work on progressing the action points in the action plan. Obviously members had training last week. I hope you all found that useful. And then, if there's any other areas that you feel you need some additional support or you would benefit from additional training, rather than waiting for, something to be put in the diary for a specific event, then please do contact me or one of the team if it's a specific issue, and we'll certainly help you. So that's all I want to say on that really. It's for noting essentially. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Are you happy to, does anybody want to ask anything first? Councillor Morwood.
Just a quick one. Does de-designation, does that get reviewed after a certain period of time? Is it automatic, or do we apply and say we think we're in a position to be de-designated?
I'm reliably informed by the powers that be at the civil service and government that it's not a case of us applying to be de-designated. The whole process is an annual event whereby they will look at the data and authorities will be designated and de-designated. On the basis that we were designated shortly before Christmas last year, in my mind it follows that the data will be being looked at after it's published this quarter, and that's when I would anticipate decisions being made. It doesn't necessarily follow that you would be de-designated, but what we will get a letter to confirm either we are continuing to be designated or we are de-designated. But it's not for us to apply, although we will submit representations and setting out why we think we should be. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.